Comments by Dr. Suresh Kumar, who is co-founder and executive chairman, NexAge Technologies in New Jersey, and he is going to speak on ecosystems approach for development in Kerala. And Suresh Kumar has been a great supporter. When I shared this thought with him about 3 weeks back, he came forward, organized a meeting at his home, and right away brought in a whole lot of new people into the committee in organizing the whole thing. So thank you, Suresh, for all your efforts, and the floor is to you.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
All right, so that was a very enlightening talk by Dr. Somasudaram. You have been inspiration to all of us, including me, and I want you to know that I've always had this desire to get into an Ivy League, and I was able to achieve that earlier this year, not as a student, but as a teacher, where right now I'm mentoring, in fact, the same Columbia Business School, the Entrepreneurship program. So for me, I consider it a privilege that without having stepped or studied in an Ivy League, I have an opportunity to mentor at an Ivy League. So, but I'm predominantly a practitioner, and I want to talk today mostly with respect to what I've learned on the job and in the field. Let me get started, and I'm just going to share a couple of ideas which is very foundational to take Kerala, to launch Kerala into the orbit. And I think irrespective of all the details of technology, which technology, etc., we need to have this in place before Kerala can take off. That's my view. I'll get started. Is there any way, do you have a clicker I could use?
We didn't click. You have a clicker? Yeah. Just to show it on the, you mean pointer?
No, clicker for these slides.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You can use this. Because they have to render a charge.
Alright.
I bet you.
Okay. I think we're getting started now. So I just wanted to quickly display the reason why I'm here to talk today. So I hope. Now, what ails the Kerala economy? I think there are two. We can look at it in two angles. One is the legacy issues that goes back to centuries, and those are pretty well known. I'm not going to spend much time on it, but these are all things that you know of. Last year, when I visited Kerala, there were 2 days in which there were hartals, and I was speaking to one of the folks who was organizing this, and I kind of asked him the reason. So he said there were some political issues going on. So, and there's a hartal. So I did ask though, why do you call it a hartal? What is the logic behind it? He said, no, that is how it's been called for ages. I don't know what the meaning is. But actually, I'm sure some of you know that hartal actually is a Hindi translation. It is hartal, which means close the locks. But people are doing it without even knowing the meaning behind it. So these are the legacy issues that are most of you well aware of. I would like to stress the last one. There has been for decades a lack of cultural acceptance, especially people of my generation growing up in Kerala. Entrepreneurship was not an option, right? You just didn't have the role models. There was pretty much the job arena was limited to a few more traditional jobs, doctor, engineer, banker, etc. And here is what I feel is the 21st century challenges. And just to summarize it, there are a bunch of challenges, but to summarize it, it is a lack of high growth startups. Now, when you say high growth startup means one that creates hundreds of jobs, that grows at least 20% or more per year, that provides innovative product and services or an innovative business model. And the reason I feel is the lack of a supportive ecosystem. I want you to just remember that word, ecosystem, I'm going to use it a few times today, that can provide the support that is required for a startup to survive, grow, thrive. We can move on to the next slide. And here is just sharing my personal viewpoint that if startup activity, which is how modern economies are measured, the number of startups, right? All the Western countries and many emerging countries are mentioned by this. If that is the true engine of job creation, one thing is clear that the education system in Kerala is actually acting as brakes. So they're not supporting it, but they're even impeding the growth of it. And why do I say that? It is because almost no schools, college have an emphasis on the skills that are required for new venture creation. What are these skills? Let's just take a quick look at what these skills are. Here's a list of the skills I feel are most critical for new venture creation. One is intellectual curiosity, which means the approach of tinkering, taking things up, breaking it up, putting it back together. To be restless. Now these are considered, at least till now, was considered negative in Kerala, right? If you are restless, you don't know what you're doing, or you're breaking things, you're taking it apart. That is what is required as an essential component of entrepreneurship. Then, I think Dr. Somsudharan mentioned it, how do you get comfortable with taking risk when you have uncertainty? So getting that level of comfort is again essential for entrepreneurship. How do you develop the art of networking and building relationships? Creativity and innovation. And how do you sell? And I think this perhaps is the most important, which is a culture where you can embrace failure. That is something which has been missing for many, many decades and centuries, I would say, in Kerala. Right? So if you fail at something, for example, let's say if you go to school, don't do well, if you fail, that is a major issue. But that failure could be the stepping stone to a great success. Now, I'm sure you all know of the great dropouts in college who have created the world's biggest corporations, right? Steve Jobs, Mark Zuckerberg, etc. Now, if they were in Kerala, perhaps they would not have got that opportunity, right? But that failure, that being not afraid of taking that risk, embracing failure is what really helps. And then the continuous lifelong learning. So learning is never done. I am learning every day, right? Even from my students at Columbia, I learn new things. So here is, I think, a truth that we need to realize, and in fact, not only the government of Kerala, but all of us, that if the government and institutions in Kerala do not meet the demand of talented and ambitious individuals, you can rest assured that some other state or institution or company in the world is taking advantage of that. And I see that every day, because every year I go to India to hire IT professionals for requirements of my ventures in the US. And invariably, I meet some of the best candidates who are of Kerala origin in a different city, right? It could be Chennai, it could be Bangalore, Delhi, and even in the Middle East. So I sometimes wonder why, and always the answer is that it's opportunity. I did not have opportunity in Kerala that I would have got in Bangalore or elsewhere. So we need to create that kind of an environment. So here is what I am proposing, that we should start thinking in terms of entrepreneurial capitalism. And this means a very democratic form of entrepreneurship, where you have very widespread opportunity, where you have a lot of opportunities to education and training that are relevant to entrepreneurship and creating of businesses, where you have mentoring, sharing of ideas, you have a free flow of talent, which is, if you notice, that's one of the things in the US. You can move from company to company anytime you want to. Easy access to capital, legal protections, and collaboration between the government, business, and education. And I will come a little bit later down to how those collaborations could work. But let me start with defining what an ecosystem is. Now, you all know the traditional definition, which is a community or system of interconnected, interacting parts with its physical environment, which is acting as a unit. That's an ecosystem. And a traditional ecosystem looks like this. You must have learned this back in school, right? This is how one healthy ecosystem looks. So everything starting from the sun to a plankton and algae is important for it to all work well. Now, the exact same principle also applies to an entrepreneurship ecosystem. And this is how I would characterize it. That it consists of these various parts working in harmony. Right? You have policy, you have the support structures, you have human capital of various technologies and skills, you have a cultural support, you have market access, right, within the state and all over the world, and you have also access to finance. If all of this comes together, then you have a true entrepreneurial ecosystem that can work and thrive. Here is another view of the ecosystem that I've used in a different context. In the US, these are some of the parts of those ecosystems. So you have foundations, you have entrepreneurs who are established, you have new entrepreneurs, you have corporations, you have media, and you have a lot of support organizations like Chamber of Commerce and groups like this. So here are some of the stakeholders. It's not a complete list. It will give you an idea that some of the stakeholders are entrepreneurs. They are employees, customers, community, the government, business and industry, Chamber of Commerce, education, research institutions, media, and where all of us can play a role is diaspora communities. Right? We are all part of the diaspora community that can add value to Kerala. So this is how the state of the ecosystem is currently, I would say, in India. You have, and I've just taken three aspects of the ecosystem: the academics, practice, and policy. There is very little overlap between the three elements, which means that in schools they just teach what they want to without really knowing whether it is something that is going to be applied or applicable. And policy is made usually without taking entrepreneurs or education or research into consideration. Here is where I believe we should be, the desired state of the ecosystem, which means there has to be a very significant overlap of all the components. And the sweet spot where all of these intersect is where innovation takes place. That's where new ideas come, and things like a Google or an Apple, etc. are created in that sweet spot. So here is an example of how it works in the US, how entrepreneurs interacted with policymakers on one issue, just skilled immigration. Right? It was, as you know, it's been an issue going on for many years, etc. And it has been affecting a lot of high-tech entrepreneurs. So what we did was that we accessed policymakers, we provided them with research evidence from various universities, and here is what the event actually looked like in Congress, in the US Congress. We had over 250 entrepreneurs, which means we are representing several thousands of employees, had gone in there for one day to meet with congressmen and senators, tell them what exactly the problems we were facing. And we have a few congressmen in there. This is proof. Congressman McDermott, that's me, and my friend Ramchi in Kerala. Because what they'll be looking for is how can I get 1,000 qualified people? And what will those 1,000 qualified people look for? Do I have a good place to live? Can I have some adventures on the weekend? Do I have a nightclub to go to? That's all part of the ecosystem. To attract good people, you need to have all that in place in Kerala. If you have that in place, companies will come, you're going to have innovation, those companies are going to do subcontract jobs. That's how the Kerala ecosystem will have. So with that, I conclude, and I look forward to participating in the rest of the sessions. Thank you.